Alright guys, a small hat Chris with a small hat crew today. I am here with Nick as per usual.
Hey guys.
We just went ahead and did the undefeated Dofi list. We also have for you today an undefeated Luffy list. OP02, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't feeling too big on Luffy. I abandoned him, I jumped ship, hopped over to Kinemon. That didn't go over for me as well as I thought it was. I wasn't happy with the deck. I was honestly kind of losing passion for the game. Thought why not, because there's another guy recently played in 3 online regionals. He back-to-back topped with Luffy. Time after time and time again, just non-stop. And if he was doing this consistently, it's the first time I thought it might have been a fluke. But the fact he did it 3 straight times in a row, I was like, okay, so then there's something to this. Luffy actually can compete. So I went and I took his list, I modified it a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. But here we go, I'll go ahead and start you guys off. Obviously we got leader Luffy. And then this one doesn't take, you know, not really much to explain here. This is Nami, she grabs all your straw hats. And we are playing a straw hat deck. Really good. And now, one thing that, unlike OP01, she is now a target to pick up off of Dadan. So you can go Dadan, pick up Nami, dig for Jet Pistol. You have Gordons, Otamas, we'll get to those. But pretty much anything that gets put on the board against Luffy in OP02 usually is not surviving. Like you can even, though it takes a bit more work, pop bigger things like Mihawks with a Gordon and a Jet Pistol. Or I guess we'll just move on with it so that we'll, as we see those cards, we'll discuss that. Otama, an insane 2K, probably the best 2K in the game, if I'm being completely honest with you. She's got utility, she costs 1, she's a 2K at the end of the day, and she synergizes so heavily with so many cards in this deck, including one of the other 2Ks that we'll get to. Now we have Makino. 1 drop, 2K, pumps all 1 drops by 3K. Your Namis become 5K, they can swing at the lead for no extra investment. However, with Luffy, Makino's even better, because Makino basically says pump 4K. Because you pay 1 for her, you pump 3, and then Luffy ability puts that Dawn on the character, so your Namis are now 6. They require your opponent to drop a 2K to stop a swing from a 1 drop. She's also a 2K herself, so that's really good. And worst case scenario, you can use her for counter. Next card here, this is where the list starts to vary a little bit. Gordon. So this card is insane. He has no counter, and that's because he is insane. He is a 1-drop 2K, so Makino can pump him to 5K to swing at your lead. One thing that is I really like to do with him is I like to put him on the board and swing with him. I like to use Makino to pump him to 5K, and then Luffy pumps him to 6K. You swing at their leader or whatever, they'll drop the 2K. They either give up a life or they drop a 2K, and then you minus the Gordon to the bottom of the deck, lower something by 3, and then you play the Vista to pop it. Robin pops it. Masked Deuce pops it. Whitebeard pops. Things just do not survive. Not to mention, he's one of the few cards, because he drops by 3K instead of 2 like everything else, he can hit with a Jet Pistol 9K. So he kills Mihawk, for example. That's just really big. And not to mention, because he hits 3, he also allows you to get away with playing another 2K. And that one, Masked Deuce. This card really wasn't too big on him. I honestly thought that he lived up to his name, and he was just a dud. I thought this card was no good. The fact that a card like Gordon exists, though, pretty much compensates for that entirely. If you have the Gordon, then you can go ahead. So Masked Deuce on his own, in this meta, he pops pretty much everything that Zoro puts on the board. And then with very little investment, with an Otama, he touches almost everything that Law will put on the board for the most part. And then when you bring Gordon into the equation, he now hits 5Ks. So just like Robin with an Otama hits a 5K, he does that with the Gordon. He's also a 2K. And his ability takes 2 done, so you swing leader, because he's going to be 5K, and then he pops a blocker in the process. He's just a mini Robin, and he's also one that's just very cheap. If your opponent invests resources into popping a Masked Deuce, you're not upset about that whatsoever. He's like bait, essentially, because they have to go for him, and if they don't, then you're getting the pop off of him, because you would have played him if you didn't have the pop. Next is Dadan. She picks up all the 1Ks. She picks up the Otama. She picks up the Gordon. I play 4, because unlike the other player, I play 4 of them because I really want to be able to see the card, and Dadan makes it so much more consistent to see them. The fact that he lets you get away with running a card like Masked Deuce is insane. So that's Dadan's true strength. Dadan can let you pick up a Nami. The Nami can dig for the jet pistol. Like, things just do not survive because Red is so consistent set to at popping things that are 6k and lower. It just happens so consistently. Brook. He is a one of. This is a card that I'm actually not I'm not against it. I'm not too big on it though. I probably will end up cutting it. I'm not sure for what. Maybe I think it'll be the Sanji 2k that climbs to 7k and picks up a card from life. Realistically, it'll probably be him. In the meantime though, it is currently Brook. And yeah, not much more to say about that. Robin. Robin has fallen victim to a little bit of power creep, unfortunately. She's not as good as she used to be. That would have been a lie if I had said that. She usually does not stick to the board. I find myself using her in OP02 more for counter than anything. There's a lot of times where if I go for a Nami and I see a Zoro and then I see a Robin, I'll pick up the Robin just because she has counter. Because Zoro tends to stick in my hand, which will then go on to explain why I'm only running 3 Zoro instead of 4 Zoro. This card, I don't know if it's just me, a personal bias, he clings to my hand. He is constantly in my hand all the time. I cannot get rid of this card. I tried to go ahead and solve the issue a little bit by cutting him down from 4 to 3. It has helped significantly. I don't see him as often. And one thing I've come to realize in this set is OP02, Zoro, I usually don't swing with him to turn I play him too much anymore. I usually put him on the board and then I pass. And that's because there's just certain numbers that you want to be able to hit in this set. Like for instance, you're playing against Whitebeard, you'd rather establish the Zoro because they don't play Jet Pistol. So they realistically probably aren't going to play him unless they want to drop the Otama and the Vista. And that doesn't happen too often. And again, if they do, you paid 3 Dawn, it was just a Zoro, you don't really care all too much. Vista, this card is insane. I don't know how this card came to be. Who's Who pops a 3 and lower, minuses a Dawn. Kobe takes a card out of hand. Vista just hits the board and does it. It's insane. And also the fact that he synergizes with Otama and he also synergizes with Gordon, it just makes no sense how this card made it out of the factory line or whatever. This card's so dumb, just on play. I don't understand how this card exists in the current state that it does, but he is an MVP. He is so good, and he even has counter. Like, you just literally can't go wrong with 4 Vista. Alright, unlike the other list, here we go. I am playing 4 Luffy. This card is a win con. This card wins against so many things. There's certain matchups too. This card is phenomenal against not Strawbeard, but Whitebeard, whereas you just stick it on the board and they cannot answer it. And once they are down, because against Whitebeard, you go ahead and they end up on 0 life incredibly fast between you poking them and them themselves taking the life every single turn. One thing I really like to do is they'll usually get down to 1 life and then they'll play the Whitebeard so they don't have to pick up the life. And I'll just load all the Dawn onto Luffy and I'll swing at them. And they won't counter out of it because it's not the game-ending hit, but it does take the last life off of them. And then they have to try to counter out of it again. All the Dawn on your leader, all the Dawn on a Whitebeard. He guarantees that they do hit that 0 life for him to then punish them and go ahead and just end the game. This card is insane. Whitebeard, he is the heart and soul of OP02 Luffy. This card is ridiculous. If you see him, you're probably gonna win. He is so insanely good. This card, again, in the Whitebeard matchup, you mulligan for it. This card is ridiculous. Because like I was saying before, if they're at 0 life, you can just play him. Luffy climbs up to 7k. Leader ability, he attaches. He then becomes 8k. And if you're forced to go second, your leader is 9k. You swing 9k or 8k. And then on top of that, because you are not dying, because on their turn, you are 7. It takes very little to be able to counter out of their attacks, so they can't close the game out against you. On the following turn, you can put all 10 Dawn onto the Newgate, swing, and that's 20k. They are not countering out of that.
I was going to say, would you rather see Newgate in your opening hand or Nami now?
Nami doesn't really pick up anything that matters in the Whitebeard matchup, surprisingly. It's like there's just so many times where you pick up a Nami, And like I was saying before, I'll pick up a Robin just because it's counter. There's nothing really that you want to put on the, because if you pick up Robin, it's gonna get popped. You don't want to invest into putting Robin on the board because, like I was saying, she gets popped. There's the 5-drop. If you see one of them, you usually, like I was saying, you just use him as a stepping stone to get them 2-0 life so that you can close the game out with Whitebeard. Nami picks up a 2K in the one of Brook. There just really isn't much that I would want to pick up off Nami. If I play against Whitebeard, if I don't see the Whitebeard, ironically, I mulligan until I do, and I hope I do get it. This card is just so good. And that's just that one matchup. Every other matchup, like Whitebeard is popping things. Luffy ability gives you the extra Don to put on him. He's swinging 12. He's popping things because you have the Otamas and the Gordons. He's just so good. He closes out games. And he's just so big. And if you're getting his ability, he's 12 minimum. This card is ridiculous. This card is insanity. And because he's so big, he sticks to the board because the opponent doesn't even bother trying to take him out because they know that for a 1K or 2K out of hand, he survives, and they realistically probably spent minimum 4 Don just trying to make the attempt to answer him. Jet Pistol. Isn't much to say about this card. Jet Pistol is insane. This card is it deals, so this card is the equivalent of 4-drop 6K vanilla. It is 4 Don, kill a 6K. It is the exact inverse. This card is so good. And now in set 2 with Gordon existing, it hits everything. It hits literally, like there are very few cards that don't die to Jet Pistol. And then of course, the trigger is insane. Trigger can just steal you games. 2 Red Hawk. I'm not too big on this card. Unfortunately, I do think it's a necessary evil. I was thinking, like, if I were to cut it, probably for like Radical Beam or something like that. But realistically, I don't even play it for... There's a lot of times where they'll swing at me with like 6 or 7 and I have the counter, but I won't drop a counter. I'll use this instead. Just a spot removal. I'll use it to kill something like a Dofi if they didn't put the Dawn on it. I'll go ahead, I'll pop like a random Capone. No one's playing Chopper anymore, but you get the idea. He just removes random blockers so that you can try to close out game on the following turn. And that is Luffy. Leader, I honestly think he's really, really good this set. He has a phenomenal key name on matchup. The Whitebeard matchup is so good. I just don't... Once you learn how to play the Whitebeard matchup, I don't know how you lose it, if I'm being completely honest. So he beats Whitebeard. He beats key name on. The only issue with him is that it almost feels like he auto loses to Smoker. Z's kind of picking up traction, and the problem with Smoker isn't any of like the cards that are unique to them. It's the Borsalino, and that card's also in Z. So any deck that puts Borsalino on board, kind of a little uphill battle because he'll just sit there and force you to make very suboptimal plays. Also trying to bait them into using the Borsalino. It's just a very big mind game once he's on the board. And it does not feel good whatsoever. But as far as the meta matchups go, he beats Kanemon, he beats Whitebeard. I imagine that he would go even with Zoro, if not favored, because you do play the Whitebeard. They also play the Whitebeard, but I don't know. I do think Luffy, because Luffy's always won the Zoro matchup in OP01. The decks are slightly different in OP02, but they're once again adopting some of the same engines. So I imagine that matchup has to remain exactly the same. He beats... I don't know what's worth mentioning. He beats Ivankov. Are there any meta matchups I'm forgetting? Is that all of them?
How's this Dofi matchup?
Yeah, I don't know.
Gotta find out.
Well, I guess we will. But yeah, that's been it for Luffy. He is a contender. I think he's real. Until next time. See you guys.
Later.